got trouble.
Okay, it being 6 o'clock,
Flooding and everything.
I'm going to call this August 19th, 2024 Select Board meeting to order. And I'll notify everyone that Chelmsford Telemedia is broadcasting this meeting live and recording it for later viewing as requested. So if you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we have some public service announcements this evening, and first up will be Harrison Mayotte to tell us about voting for the primary election.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Harrison Mayotte, Departmental Support Coordinator for the Town Clerk's Office. I have a quick update regarding the September 3rd presidential primary. Approximately 7,200 vote-by-mail ballots have been sent out to date. We are also conducting absentee voting in our office over the counter for those who will not be able to make it to the polls on Election Day. This Saturday, August 24th, is the voter registration deadline at 5 p.m. You can go to chelmsfordma.gov/vote to check your voter registration status and register to vote online. This Saturday, in-person early voting also begins. The weekend hours for the 24th and 25th are from 1 to 5 p.m. and weekday during normal town hall office hours next week. The vote-by-mail application deadline is August 26th at 5 p.m. Completed mail-in ballots must be turned into the town clerk's office by 8 p.m. on election night. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, please contact our office. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have a few more public service announcements.
The Chelmsford Military Community Covenant Task Force invites the community to the 9/11 Remembrance Ceremony on Saturday, September 7th at 9 a.m. It is at the Chelmsford 9/11 Memorial at 50 Billrica Road. It says, please join us to honor those who perished that day and first responders who answered the call to serve. The Health Department welcomes you to join us as we walk on the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail every second and fourth Tuesday, May through September, from 9 a.m. to 9:30. They meet at the 110 Ball Fields at the intersection of Fletcher Street and Chelmsford Street. For any questions, you can contact the Chelmsford Health Department. Also from the Health Department, they are hosting a depression and anxiety support group facilitated by Marissa Cameron, Chelmsford Health Department social worker. It's open to individuals 18 years and older, snacks and safe space provided, registration preferred but not required. For more information, that's the every fourth Tuesday of the month from 6:30 to 8 at the Chelmsford Center for the Arts. Another free event, the Chelmsford Health Department's third annual Plant Positivity event, where youth can decorate a plant pot and attach a positive quote, and they will be delivered to the Senior Center. It's open to use ages 10 and up at the Chelmsford Town Hall Gym on Tuesday, August 20th from 5 to 6:30 p.m. The Chelmsford Health Department is also hosting a CPR training Thursday, August 22nd. It's at Chelmsford Town Hall from 9 a.m. until 12 p.m. The cost is $20 per person. It's Chelmsford residents only. It's a 3-hour training, and participants will obtain an American Heart Association Heart Saver certificate that is valid for 2 years. More information can be found at the Chelmsford Health Department. Also from the Chelmsford Health Department, they are hosting an annual candlelight vigil for International Overdose Awareness Day. It's at the Chelmsford Center Town Common on Saturday, August 31st, 6:30 p.m. Under the stars, we'll light candles to remember those lost to overdose and show support for those struggling with addiction. The Chelmsford Health Department is also hosting a free program, Creative Connections. Registration is required. This is for parents and guardians. Pairs create one shared box or 2 individual boxes to be used for communication of needs, gratitude, well wishes, etc. between parents, guardians, and teens. It's at the Chelmsford Center for the Arts, September 3rd, 6:30 to 7:30 p.m., and it's open to middle school-aged youth and their parent or guardian. The Chelmsford Open Space and Recreation Plan is looking for feedback. They have a survey on the town website. They're looking for people to tell us what their favorite place to play is and what other types of open space and recreation does our town need and what could be improved upon. The Municipality Vulnerability Preparedness Project is also looking for survey responses. They want to know what we think would make Chelmsford better and more resilient. And that website is also available on the town website, the link to take that survey. Another event, Creating Chelmsford's Future, a strategic plan. They are holding a community kickoff event to help shape our community. There's free ice cream, snacks, and kid craft activities. It will be September 18th at 5:30 p.m. at the Chelmsford Elks Lodge. And one more. This is a legal notice. Oh, do I have to read this in full? I think, right? It's a legal notice from the Town of Chelmsford Cable Television License Renewal Proceeding. The Town of Chelmsford Select Board, as statutory cable television license issuing authority under Mass General Law 166A S1, will hold a public cable license renewal hearing on September 9th, 2024 at 6 p.m. at Town Offices, 50 Billerica Road, Chelmsford, as part of the town's license renewal proceedings pertaining to Verizon New England, Inc. Chelmsford's Verizon cable license is due to expire on October 31st, 2024, and the issuing authority will be considering final action on a proposed renewal license, including possible approval or denial of renewal. Public comment is invited regarding the Chelmsford Verizon renewal license and on town license renewal needs and cable operator past performance. Interested persons may attend and directly participate in person or remotely using the Zoom link, which will be found on the agenda posted on the town website. The hearing will also be broadcast for viewing only by Chelmsford Telemedia. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we're to the public input part of our agenda. If there's anybody that would like to address the board on any topic, you can do that at this time. And just a note, you have, if you could keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Easy.
Okay.
Okay. How are you, everybody? This is Vivian Merrill. I have a couple of things to ask you about. First one is on behalf of the Holiday Decorating Committee. Just to let the public know, we are doing a calendar raffle for the month of October. Tickets are $10, and you can find the tickets at the collector's window at Chelmsford Town offices. We have a bin over at Chelmsford Animal Hospital. We have one at Parley Farm, and then there's another one at Old Millhouse Coffee in the center. The more the merrier. Basically, your $10 is getting you 31 chances to win a prize, and all the money raised will go to help fund different things at the Holiday Prelude. The second thing, coming before you to ask as the Vice Chair of the Dog Park Advisory Committee, to request permission to table the discussion on lighting at the dog park tonight because the Dog Park Committee has not had a chance to discuss this latest proposal with the Chelmsford Dog Association.
Okay, I can't answer that right now. When we get to that topic, we'll take that under advisement.
Okay. During that hearing, will we be allowed to make comments or anything?
If we don't table it,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, fair. All right, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board at this time? Anybody on?
I don't see anybody on Zoom waving their hand or anything.
Okay, we'll go then to committee vacancies.
The following committees have vacancies as of August 19th, 2024. The Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, the CCA Town Hall Advisory Committee, the Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee, the Commission on Disabilities, the Community Action Program Committee, the Conservation Commission, the Cultural Council, the Historic District Commission, the Holiday Decorating Committee, the Parade Committee, the Personnel Board, the Public Records Advisory Committee, the Recycling Committee, and the Roberts Field Advisory Committee. If you're interested in serving on a town board or committee, please complete an online application available on the town website, or you can contact the town manager's office for more information.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a public hearing, a continuation for a National Grid poll petition on Princeton Street that we opened at our last meeting, but we did not have anybody from National Grid here or Verizon to talk about it. We have somebody?
Yeah, we have National Grid and the contractor both on the Zoom this evening.
Okay.
Sam, do you want to start?
Good evening, everyone. I can start.
Okay.
My name is Rohil Ajaz. I'm the contractor on behalf of National Grid. So basically, this is a recent project. It's called Flizzr Scheme. It's fault location, isolation, and service restoration. And the major part of the work is installing a new reclosure on pole 58-50. It's basically just to get the more power reliability and also several advantages, including like power service quality, improving the fault detection, and preventing outages. Pole 5850 is the most suitable. Also, I would say easiest and cleanest location to install a reclosure. Initially, we petitioned on installing on in front of 30-32 Princeton Street, but considering a large siphon trunk Verizon cables were hanging on those poles, we had to relocate one of the locations. So that is all I had on this one. If you guys have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer it.
Okay, are there any questions from the board?
So so they're installing a new pole? Are they removing the old pole, the old JO pole?
No, we are installing a new pole between pole 58 and 59. So it's a new mid-span pole between 58 and 59.
But on the,
A new what?
A new pole.
like it has an existing JO pole here, and this is the proposed new pole. So what happens to the
Yeah.
existing pole?
So those two poles are not, I would say, easiest location, or like as per the National Grid standards, those two poles cannot be utilized for installation of reclosure. Because as per the standard, it has to be a straight through pole, no angles on it, because on that pole there will be a large heavy equipment on it. So that it doesn't have, if the pole has some angles on it, it might create some obstruction. And as per the standards of National Grid, it should have a straight through with 0 to 6 degree angle. That's it.
So I'm just
No more
curious,
than
once
that.
they install the new pole, do they remove the old pole? Does the old
No,
pole
it's a
get
new additional pole. They're not
Additional pole, it's a new mid-span. So there is, the existing is 58 and 59. We'll be installing one pole in middle of those poles.
So it's almost called a mid-span pole is what they call it. It's going in between two
Yes.
existing poles because they need it to house this equipment that they're using.
But the existing poles will still be
Yes.
utilized, or they won't?
Yes,
Oh, they
no, they
will
will
still
be,
be used.
yeah.
That's kind of what I was asking, yeah. I see.
Okay, Virginia, did I hear you start to ask a question?
No, I had the same question Aaron had, but I just wasn't understanding what the applicant was saying. I think it's clear to me now. So you're putting what's called a mid-span pole in because the existing poles can't handle.
Correct. It's
equipment?
because the existing pole is a junction pole. Like there are a lot of already equipment on that existing pole, so we cannot use the existing pole. We need to have a new mid-span in that vicinity.
And there's no possibility down the road that you could consolidate anything onto this new pole to get rid of at least one of the other existing poles?
Sure. We initially were going to install on P58, which is right in front of 30-32. But as I said, like those two poles have large Verizon siphon trunks, which were hanging down those poles. So it would be very, very difficult for us to install that reclosure.
No, my question is, that's not my question. My question is, once you have the new pole up, rather than subjecting this neighborhood to 3 poles in a row, is it possible over time to resituate any of the equipment on the 2 existing poles to that new pole so that you could get rid of one of the existing poles and get it back down to 2 again?
I haven't seen it in my experience. Like if the poles are already existing, in the future we can remove one pole. But I can see a possibility if there was a reconductoring job down the road. Um, let's say the whole street is going to be reconductor. Definitely we can reduce some poles based on the maximum span length that we can go for.
Right. I think that's the problem, Virginia, is they're putting this new pole in between the two existing poles. So if they take down one of the existing poles, it's going to create a greater distance to the next
Correct.
pole, which is then going to create that sag issue that I think he's
I see.
describing. That's
Thank you.
why I've not seen that occur.
Thank you. That's all I have, Pat.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on the board? Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody here that has any comments, questions about this application? Okay, is there anyone on Zoom, Paul?
No, not looking to speak, no.
Okay, I just have one question. Usually we have a memo from engineering about this, and I don't see that in
It's right there. I just pulled up on the screen. It's July 30th from Anthony Rapucci.
Oh, I don't see it in my packet.
Maybe it was an omission when they did the
Okay.
copying, but as you can see, they reviewed the poll petition, and they think that it conforms with the current requirements, you know.
Okay, and this is near the fire station. Is there any equipment from the fire station that's
No,
going on? Okay.
no, not aware of the site visit.
Okay, if there's no other questions, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
Okay, since Virginia is joining us by Zoom this evening, we have to make all our votes by roll call. So Virginia, you can vote first.
Aye.
George?
Aye.
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 And I'm an aye, 5-0. Okay. So do we have a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the National Grid and Verizon poll petition at Princeton Street as presented.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Virginia?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
And I'm aye, 5-0. Okay, thank you very much. And
Thank you,
Thank you,
Council.
everyone.
okay. We're to licenses. We have a license, a one-day license for the American Legion for August 24th. I see we have representatives from the Legion here.
Good evening. Dan Vigent, Commander of the American Legion.
Good evening. Phil Hamilton, Senior Commander.
Good evening. Al Riccio, General Manager, American Legion.
Okay, do you want to tell us about your,
Yeah, so same as years past, we're applying for our one-day liquor license for our outdoor block party on Willis Drive. We'll have movable barriers at the beginning of Willis Drive, just beyond our building. Parking in our top lot and overflow parking at the senior center.
okay? Anybody have any questions for this application?
This is the same thing you do every year, right?
Correct. Yeah. Okay. All right, we'll take a motion then.
I will make a motion to approve the one-day all alcoholic beverages license for the American Legion at 90 Groton Road for August 24th, 2024, as presented.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Virginia?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
And I'm aye, so it's 5-0. Okay,
Thank you.
we'll see you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have another one-day beer and wine license for 115 Middlesex Street. Does the applicant,
He's on Zoom.
he's on Zoom, okay.
George?
Hi.
Okay,
So
you,
I'm here. I applied for a one-day beer and wine license for my daughter's birthday party at the St. John Evangelist Church Hall.
okay, does the board have any questions for this applicant?
Tip certified, right? It says right there, yeah.
Yep, they have, yep.
But I They have them there all the time, right?
Yeah, they certainly do. All right, so we'll take a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the one-day beer and wine license for George Nalyanj at 115 Middlesex Street for September 15th, 2024, as presented.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. So roll call vote. Virginia?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'm aye. 5-0. Okay, you're all set.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and then we have an update from Canissa Incorporated on the pocket license.
Yeah, Madam Chair, members of the board, we heard from the applicant's counsel this afternoon, and we also been notified by our building department, building commissioner last Friday. Good news, progress, finally. The applicant has paid the $60,000 building permit fee, and council has informed us in writing that the administrative issues that were described at the last meeting have been resolved, and they expect construction to begin shortly. And they also do apologize for the confusion. They did not realize that they should have appeared at your last meeting. So, big picture progress. They've resolved the issues that were holding up the construction and have in fact paid the building permit fee. And I anticipate that when it comes time for the board's annual renewal, we will actually see construction taking place by that time. So, which will probably be a couple months from now, because we start that process in October. So it's very good news.
Okay, I mean, I feel like it's a commitment for them to pull the building permit. That's not.
It's not refundable, yeah, it's a
Right, and it's-
$60,000
Right.
check.
It's not insignificant, so, and I guess we can give them 3 months to see what it looks like in October, November, when we start talking about license renewals, to see if some progress is indeed going on there.
Makes sense.
So they're not here tonight?
No, when council and the applicant met with the chair of the board and myself in my office last Friday, basically, they provided the documentation that we described, and quite frankly, it was only going to cost him legal fees to have the attorney come in and say what we just said. So I think out of consideration, we basically said that we'd report this to the full board.
Did they have any, I know you said they were going to start construction shortly. Do they have any timeline in which, like within a year or within 18 months or whatever, where they're actually going to open up and be using the license?
Yes, they basically expect to start construction within the next several weeks, and I would anticipate that you would see them open in calendar year 25, probably within a year from now.
Thank you.
And again, we'll keep the board updated on this.
So this plan has been approved?
Yes, yep. They have now they're going to have to come back and modify the liquor license permit because they've removed the basement from the building.
Right.
And we've been in communication with them, so I think you will see them before you shortly for that modification, because now they're proceeding at risk. But their conversation with ABCC and ours is it's not a significant risk, but the fact that they've modified the building, they do have to come in and amend that license.
Okay, thank you.
Paul, they would do that before December?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? So everybody okay with that process then, to see how far it gets when it's time to issue a renewal?
Yeah. The permit's not issued yet, they've only applied for it.
They've paid. They've applied and paid, but the building commissioner is going through the review now that it's been paid. So the permit should be issued, relatively
Non-refundable?
soon. That's non-refundable, yeah.
My only comment is that, that if it's not clear to them already, there should be an expectation set that they're coming back before December with that modified permit before we vote on renewals.
Yes, yeah, they're
Because
aware of that.
whatever we vote on, we want it to be accurate.
Yeah, it's indicated, they've indicated that now that they've addressed this administrative accounting issue, that they can proceed, and that really was what was holding them up in terms of their financing to do the construction and do the license change. So again, I expect that we will see them probably within 2 months for the license modification, and then at that point have a timetable on their construction.
Okay, everybody all set with that for now? Okay, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is a discussion of a proposed Chapter 40B affordable housing project at 39 North Road and 3 Crosby Lane. Is the applicant, anybody from the applicant here? Okay,
Yep.
well,
I don't see them on Zoom either.
okay.
I know there are butters on Zoom who want to speak to this, but
Okay.
I don't see the applicant.
Yeah, I mean, well, when we had the initial meeting in February on this, I don't remember if they were here or not, but, so anyway, I just want to give
Their attorney was here, Pat.
okay. So I just want to go through the process that we'll do tonight. So if the applicant were here, I was going to give them an opportunity to give us an update on the changes to this application. As I said, we did go through this process in February. The application has changed. There are additional units added to it. So the way this will work is I'll report on the department comments that we've received, and then if the board has any comments about this, comments or questions, and then the public will have an opportunity to make comments also. And just so you know, the comments that were received in February, I still have those. I started to draft the letter that was needed to be sent at that time, so I will amend that letter with whatever additional comments we get. So I guess I would ask that, you know, if you did have something to say in February, I do have that information. If you do want to repeat it, you're definitely free to do that, too. So as far as the department comments, and many of these are the same as what we received in February, too, but I'll read them anyway. DPW notes that Crosby Lane in its entirety is designated as a scenic road, so any work done to the road itself is covered under Chelmsford bylaw chapter 130. As far as site plan comments, they feel like they don't have the full site plan review yet, so they cannot comment on stormwater management conditions. They also are looking for enclosed dumpster pad and the dumpster location and what the perpetual care of the dumpster will be. They want to see existing and proposed utilities on the site. They note that this section of North Road is proposed for roadway construction this calendar year and will be under a 5-year moratorium, which will not allow it to be disturbed for that time frame. Access to Crosby Village is proposed off Crosby Lane. Pavement width there is about 18 feet. So they want, you know, they're noting that probably that needs to be modified somewhat, and are also looking for proposed pedestrian accommodations, looking for snow storage locations, and regarding sewer, they asked for some clarification on the data application, but note that there will need to be an on-site treatment system for anywhere from 4,070 to 4,180 gallons per day of wastewater. So that needs to be taken care of for DPW. The fire department noted that they need to test the pressure and flow for the water flow test. They require a hydrant within 60 feet of any sprinkler connection, and hydrants need to have a clearance of 10 feet from any obstruction or parking spots. A fire apparatus access and turning plan must be submitted for approval. The building must be protected with a monitored automatic sprinkler system. All work on the fire alarm and sprinkler systems must be permitted through the Chelmsford Fire Department and is subject to fire department approval. And they note that the applicant needs to apply to the town E11 committee for addresses. The police department notes that the street, they say it's 15 feet wide as opposed to 18 feet from the DPW. And note that the entrance is only 20 feet in width. It does not presently support the continuous flow of two-way traffic and presents significant traffic and safety concerns. Emergency access is a serious concern and needs to be addressed. And they note there's no easy way in or out of Crosby Lane in either direction, and that this project will further contribute to problematic backups on North Road. The Board of Health notes that the on-site septic system must meet all Title V requirements, along with the Health Department's process. And they also note about the dumpster site and that it needs to follow Board of Health rules. The building commissioner notes that the certified plot plan and construction plans have to meet the most current building code additions, which would be the current energy code and the specialized opt-in code as was recently adopted by the town of Chelmsford. Community Development and Conservation Commission did not have any new comments. So are there any comments or concerns from the board? I'll start, Aaron, how about if I start with you?
I think that there's a lot of concerns by a lot of our various departments in town. Most shockingly, really, the emergency access and safety concerns, I think, are probably the most concerning to me. The lack of planning here for their sewer needs and for snow storage and things like that is an issue. I mean, there's a lot of issues here. I'm not sure. I mean, we can put them all in our letter.
They
right?
will be all in the letter, yep.
Yeah. I mean, the emergency access concern is really the most shocking to me, but yeah, there's a lot.
Okay, Pat.
I agree with everything Aaron said, and I agree with the reports as issued by our town departments. I was out there on the site walk last week, and it's very tight. I mean, the Chelmsford Police are correct in their assessment that there's not two vehicles getting down that road. So if you've got a school bus or an emergency vehicle or anything like that, it's just going to be really difficult to provide emergency services, et cetera. As well as looking at the building on the site, it's a very, very, very tight site. They're looking for some relief as far as setbacks on the rear. And the building is much too large for the current site. And the fact that they don't show areas for dumpsters and snow removal and all that, I don't know where you'd put it and still meet all the green space requirements and such. So the way it's in its current condition, I couldn't support this.
We don't get to vote on it.
No, but I'm just stating my position on this, that I would not be in favor of this project, and the aesthetics don't fit the neighborhood, in my opinion. So those are my comments: the aesthetics, the public safety aspect, and just the tightness of the site.
Okay. George?
You said the police said it was 15 feet, the road was only 15 feet?
That's measured by hand.
By hand, okay, but so, I wonder how wide is it with the easements? Do we have any idea? 'Cause
How wide would?
wide would the road be, including if you went to the extreme of the easements?
Yeah, I don't know
I
that.
think they might, 24 feet is what a normal road would be.
A normal road would be 40 feet.
Pardon?
Yeah, I think they said they had a 30-foot easement. Yeah, the right-of-way is 30 feet.
I think 24 is acceptable.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I don't know.
But you're gonna have to do a lot of
Just
work.
saying.
You're gonna have to do a lot of work out there to get to 24 because of the utility poles and you
I mean,
know.
if they want it bad enough, I mean, they'll do it, but I'm just saying, there's, maybe that's, I don't know if that's what the state accepts, but I mean, that's what I would look at anyway. A
Okay.
minimum of 24.
Okay. Virginia?
I'll echo what my colleague said in terms of the departmental concerns, and the applicant's not here to address any of that, so I think those just remain open concerns, and I think some of them are very significant. I also agree with the density comments, the size of the structure and the aesthetics. And if the applicant were here, I would have asked if they had intended to hire a historical architect, because this is in the historic district, and the rendering in the packet not only just doesn't seem to fit in the neighborhood, but it doesn't look like it was done with a historic district in mind. I am just confused a little bit about what we're seeing in our packet, because some of the documentation is from our previous review, and then things like the drawings and the financials are updated. But there are still pages that are referring to the old number of units. And with that, it's not clear to me what the percentage AMI is. I'm sorry, I just couldn't find it. There was a page from the original review still in this document that says they were 3 units all at 80% AMI. And I didn't know if any changes had been made to that. So I just, the packet itself to me is not cohesive because they didn't update the whole thing.
Yeah, I noticed that too, yeah.
And I think whoever is doing the permitting or the review at the state may want to consider asking for a completely updated package, because it's inconsistent all over the place.
Sure, yep. Okay, that it?
Can I ask,
Yes, thank you.
can I ask another question? So in regard to the proposed roadway construction on 4 and the moratorium, so do they need a cut on North Road? Do they need a curb cut on North Road
I don't know.
for access, or?
I don't know,
Well,
with
they
with the
just wouldn't be able
utilities,
to.
you know, I don't know.
They maybe have to connect to gas or something like that. I don't know.
Sewer and utilities.
Yeah, any of the utilities.
Anything like that.
They might have to. We don't know. We don't know that.
Oh.
And maybe they don't either at this point.
So if we were to approve it, and then our
We're not
road work
going to
goes.
approve it.
Oh, or if it were to get approved,
But-
could be a holdup because they would be able to.
But
cut it.
remember, the Board of Appeals has the authority to waive all local regulations.
Oh, so they can,
And
they
if
can waive
if
the
they- And if they
moratorium.
turn it down, the state has the ability to override local regulations, so the state can override the moratorium as
Okay,
well.
okay, thank you, yeah. Yeah, so that being able to, I mean, well, that couldn't potentially hold up our road work. They would just make the cut
No,
anyways,
it would
yeah.
be the other way around,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, is there anybody here in the audience that would like to make any comments regarding this? Come up to the microphone, please, and state your name.
Excuse me. Douglas Hausler from Lampert, Hausler and Rodman, representing one of the abutters, Ronald and Anne Marie Greenwood, who live on Crosby Lane at the end on the left side. They have an 18th century farmhouse home that has been in their family for over 100 years. They're greatly concerned about this whole project going forward. I've written to the chair and the board previously in February. My client's position is probably even more stringently against it than it was initially. I don't know if there's any explanation given for why it increased from 10 to 16 units, if any explanation's been offered.
We were notified that the state didn't feel it was economically viable at the smaller size.
Okay. I just didn't understand the reasoning for it, because they were, as I understood, the neighborhood was totally against 10 units, and
I'm sorry, is it 10 or is it 16, or I thought it went up 4
16.
units?
16.
It's
now
16.
it's 16.
It was 12.
Oh, it was
I think
12.
it was
It's
12.
It
Okay,
was
yeah.
10 or 12, and
12,
now
and
it's 16.
but we're told that's why it was increased, because of the economic viability.
Thank you. That's one question answered. The second question or comment, I hope, and I hope this helps the town, is that the town Board of Health seems to have perhaps 2 different policies it's following with respect to development within the town. And what I'm trying to get across on this particular application is they're identifying that there's going to be a septic system on a proposed new development, which means that there's going to be substantial earth moving, and with the risk of a septic system failing, and yet they're not requiring any kind of a PFAS testing of the site. Yet on a subdivision that's considered generally conventional right across the street here, the town has taken the position through the Board of Health that it required a Phase 1 environmental, and made the client in that instance supply a Phase 1 environmental assessment. I don't understand why this board, if it's going to follow that precedent, would also be consistent with the Board of Health and say, part of this package should be some environmental testing to see if there's PFAS. To the extent there is, how is it going to be addressed? How is it potentially going to affect water supply going, it affects everybody's home in Chelmsford. But what I'm trying to get across is in Hillsborough Street, the Board of Health has taken a very strong position about development with septic systems on a 5-lot subdivision. And yet here, 16 units are being prepared, and there's not even a mention of PFAS. I think the board should investigate that, why there's such a
Well,
discrepancy.
I think you should ask the Board of Health that question.
Respectfully, I do think that it's within the purview, because the select board is the one that is responding to the state, and you're getting comments from the Board of Health. So I would just ask for you to get clarification as to why do we have policy A for one site and policy B for a site with greater.
Your comment is noted.
Thank you. I just want to make that known. With respect to, I didn't understand how they were calculating the gallonage for sewers. It appears to me that they have to do an on-site septic system, because I don't believe they do have town sewer allotment to do it. So before the town goes spending a ton of money and time and energy reviewing plans, I think they have to give you more detail on exactly where the septic system's going to be placed on an already tight site. And then number two, how they're going to deal with it. Again, I don't know how they are able to get 16 units potentially here, even with state override of a Board of Appeals decision, at least as to Board of Health questions. I don't believe that process applies to the Board of Health. If the Board of Health local regulations say this is not a healthy, safe environment for this, that shuts it down. And I think that the board should take note of that and have the Board of Health tell the board whether this is a type of project it wants to approve or not, because it may just shut the entire thing down. Going further, to the extent that this board's going to consider any type of multifamily housing on Crosby Lane, the Greenwoods have always taken the position that it's either all for one and one for all, meaning the entire street becomes multifamily housing so that everybody can take advantage of the use of their properties. But it's not the appropriate place for mixed housing like that. Substantially significant homes being located next to a 16-unit apartment house, especially in the historic district. So if you're going to allow a 40B for this particular portion of Crosby Lane, as they said in February of '24, please make the entire street zoned that it would allow for multifamily housing. And I think these are our preliminary comments. I agree with the board that there's a significant lack of information, making it very hard to determine what other waivers they're going to be seeking, the viability of the project, and we'd ask respectfully that the applicant be required to provide substantially more detail now. And granted, they don't have to do a full 40B set of plans. I realize that, but there are a lot of open questions about sewerage and capacity and PFAS and some other zoning issues, the width of the road, whether they'll be entitled to get waivers, whether they'll be able to store enough cars and parking. And I did not see that they attributed anything for visitor parking, which is an issue with 16 units. The site looks tight to begin with. I don't know what they do with the visitors, unless they have some type of an easement from St. Mary's that we don't know about. So I'd ask the board to consider those thoughts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I think that was Mr. Greenwood's, you requested that in the beginning.
Right.
Remember that? You have that in your notes?
I do, yeah. Okay, is there anyone else? If you could just come to the microphone.
I am a butter to the property, and I wanted to know if they're planning to take down the building.
No, no, that's.
They're going to behind the building
Correct.
that's existing at 39?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, if you go to the town's website, there is a a packet there that shows the site plan where the buildings will be.
I got the letter in the mail, and that's the first I'd heard of any of this, and
Okay.
so I'm here, but I just didn't know whether they're planning on taking the house down that's on the street. It's very tight.
You see, if you look at the screen, you can see that the existing building is there to the left, and you can, or behind you, either way, it's there as well. See what the existing.
Excuse me, could we get the speaker's name and address, please? Her name?
My name is Sally Gilman, and I live at 14 Worthen Street, which is directly across from Crosby Drive. And I do walk down Crosby Drive frequently, and I don't see room for this project at all, or that it goes with the area. As the other gentleman said, the historical nature of the area is just doesn't work. So
Okay.
looks like it's going to be very, very tight too. So so I will go on the website. You said that I can go on and find more details about it.
Yes, as much as we have, yes.
Yeah, this is, like I said, the first stuff I heard about it was with the letter that just came about this meeting tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, you said you had with somebody on Zoom, Paul?
Yeah, there are abutters on Zoom, some by phone and some by traditional video connection. I believe that, they're welcome to comment now. I don't see anybody unmuting their microphone. So
Okay, maybe they're just here to listen then?
Maybe they're listening, I don't know.
Do they need to raise their hands or something in Zoom?
Yeah, although Christina told me that one of them, since they're on by phone, they can't raise their hand. But go ahead, Colleen.
Can you hear me?
Colleen, yeah, go ahead, Colleen.
Hi. How are you?
Okay, can we have your name, please?
Yep, my name is Colleen Skolmas. I live at 16 Crosby Lane. I'm actually Greenwood's neighbor. I attended the first meeting back in February, and I'm here to reiterate everybody's concern as well. My main concern being safety. I have 3 children. There's other children on the road, and the fact that the police department and the fire department have these safety concerns honestly scare me. I don't know how we're at this point that we're actually proposing more units than we were in February, when we have a road that literally cannot fit 2 vehicles at the same time. I'm just wondering, now that we're on record, who is liable if something were to happen? Is it Chelmsford or is it the state? Because God forbid, I have a medical emergency at my home at the end of the road, and now that we've added 16 families, which to a family, we're now at 28 people. Who knows how many children? This, that, the other thing. They can't get down the road if there's an emergency at my house. I'm just wondering where the liability falls.
I don't know that we can answer that question at this time. I mean, we're here, we're not holding a public hearing on this project. That will be the Zoning Board of Appeals that does that. We're just taking comments and providing those to the state. So.
Right, and I totally understand that. I think that is my proposed, question in all, again, even with the fire department, they're saying that they need to have that apparatus access and the turning point. That'll have to be approved. How do you go to the next step if we haven't even done that yet?
That's correct. And before they go to the Zoning Board of Appeals, you will receive notification of that public hearing and have opportunity to bring your concerns to the Zoning Board of Appeals before they make any vote to approve or deny it. Mm-hmm. So that's all I can
and
say
again,
on
I'll
that.
reiterate what other people have said too. I know what the project looks like, really, in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to matter to the state or anybody else, but it is a historical road. The first town meeting was held right next to my property. You have the Greenwoods property, you have the Doyle's property. They are 17th century homes. And I think that is a lot of the draw of Massachusetts having those quaint streets, old homes, and to put this massive, what looks just like a motel on the road, it kills the vibe. So, again, I know in the end that doesn't matter, but, as somebody that's a Chelmsford resident raising children here, I like the quaint look of our street, and I do think it matters to the town.
Okay. Thank you for your comments.
You're welcome.
Jeanette Holmberg, do you wish to comment? She's the other one who joined. Yeah, she just unmuted. Go ahead, Jeanette.
Hello?
Go ahead,
Hello.
Jeanette.
Hi, I'm also in a butter. I live at 43 North Road, and I just wrote down a few comments that a lot has already been discussed, but based on the comments that were discussed tonight and the previous meetings, safety is a huge concern for the children who use the road for getting to school or playing. It's also been discussed with multiple town departments that the location is unsafe because of the size of the road, and getting safety vehicles deeper into the street or being able to have two cars pass each other is virtually impossible. There's already a lack of space for the people who currently live on the street to maneuver around the road, and adding a large building with multiple cars will only make it worse. As mentioned, we're in the historic part of town, and many of the houses are registered within the Historical Society, including my own. And like mentioned, the aesthetics are very different from the look of the neighborhood. And based on the meeting tonight, there's a lot of agreement in how unsafe this is within the council and the abutters and commenters. That it's just unsafe to have such a large building, and we all hope that the state will deny this application, mostly to keep us safe.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.
That's it. Okay, so thank you to everybody who provided comments. I will be drafting a letter that will be submitted to the state later this week. And as I said, the next step would be for the applicant to apply for a comprehensive permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals, and all the abutters will be notified, and there will be a public hearing notice in the newspaper about that when and if it does happen. So again, thank you all for coming and for providing your inputs. So we're going to move on to our next topic on our agenda, which is Chelmsford Dog Association President Will Wagner is going to talk to us about lighting at the dog park. Now, before you even begin, I just want to comment about the earlier request that we had about tabling this discussion. Since you had prepared a presentation, I'll ask our other board members too. I guess I would be okay with hearing that presentation with the expectation that you wouldn't get an answer tonight.
That's acceptable.
Okay. Is that okay, but for the Dog Park Association too? Sure, okay.
Okay, thank you. Will Wagner, I'm the president of the Chelmsford Dog Association. Just quick, a little background on the Chelmsford Dog Park and the association. We opened the dog park in 2016. The operational hours are from dawn to dusk, as are most open spaces in Chelmsford. In partnership with the town, the Chelmsford Dog Association was responsible for the planning, implementation, and has been responsible for the maintenance of the dog park for the last 8 years. And we get between 100 and 300 dogs through the park in a day. Vivian Merrill on the Dog Park Advisory Committee was the president of the Chelmsford Dog Association when we started in 2017. She left the Dog Association to join the Dog Advisory Committee, Dog Park Advisory Committee, and I took over as president since then. So that's just a little background. The rest of it you can read yourselves. We spend approximately $12,000 to $13,000 a year and 2,000 man-hours maintaining the park. There is a huge volunteer workforce that helps us maintain the park, and we maintain the park through donations and volunteers without any tax money, on the whole, being spent by the town. The DPW occasionally helps us with a drop of dirt or sand, but for the most part, we do all of the maintenance using our donations. And we are a 501c3. So, regarding the solar lighting, in 2022, we expressed an interest to the advisory committee of adding some solar-powered, at the time it was called stadium lighting. It took us approximately a year to get the lighting plan and to raise some money because DPAC had asked us to get a sample of one of the lights, which was going to cost several $1,000s. So to find that budget in our volunteer donations, it took us a little time. When we approached DPAC to do this, they said basically, don't waste your money, we're not going to approve it anyways, which is what led to us coming here. So the initial reasons for the rejection were that no other dog park in the area has lighting. And then a caveat to that in a future meeting was if we add lighting to our dog park, and we're the only dog park in the area with lighting, it will attract non-Chelmsford Park users. And I'll address each of these in a future slide. No other town property has lighting or after dusk hours. And then the addendum to that was if we add lighting, other open space locations in Chelmsford are going to want the same thing. Since people frequently stay after dusk, especially in the winter, if we add lighting, it will encourage people to stay even later. And finally, this would contribute to light pollution and the neighbors would complain about the lighting. The last item that this is my initiative and very few people at the park wanted, this was added after discussion in July as another reason that this wasn't necessary. So to address this, I attend regular webinars on dog parks throughout the country, and there is a group called Bark Park, which specializes in dog park design, in helping towns and organizations build or enhance their dog parks. And lighting is one of the key features that many new parks being built are looking at. And many parks that are currently built are looking at adding for enhancements. There are several parks in Massachusetts alone that have added lighting in the last 2 or 3 years that did not have it originally. It's an increasing search term on Google, especially as we get into the darker months where the parks close at 4 o'clock. As of August 2024, there are 118 dog parks, and I have since modified that. I am now aware of 124 dog parks in Massachusetts. 42 of these have fixed hours with or without lights. Of those 42, 34 of them actually have some sort of lighting. And the next page shows the list of the towns that have lighting, primary lighting, secondary lighting being at an adjoining field, but allowing them to stay open. And then there are 8 dog parks that have fixed hours even without lighting. So they stay open past dusk. To address the concern about lighting at other Chelmsford locations, well, of course, all of the ball fields and soccer fields and playing fields have lights. And those are use-based, as would the dog park be. Even though the use for the dog park would be pretty much every day, it would still be fixed hours, not blaring all night. And to address the addendum concern, CDA is planning to fundraise and install the solar lights without cost to the town. If another open space wanted to add lights, having their group fundraise and install the lights without cost to the town should be no skin off the town's back, because again, it's improvement to town property without costing the town anything. Staying after hours in the winter months, as I said, we close at 4 p.m. This becomes very difficult for people to get to the park and exercise their dogs. And a well-exercised dog, a well-socialized dog is important to the dog's health and to the health of the community, because socialized dogs get into fewer problems. As we've already seen, Chelmsford is adding many more living spaces that do not have yards. Therefore, the dog park becomes even more important for these people. They get out of work at 5 o'clock and the park's closed. They have nowhere to take their dog at all. As for out-of-town people coming to the park, well, I can't see that as anything but a good thing, because people come from out of town to Chelmsford. They then spend their money in Chelmsford, stopping at the gas stations, at the food eateries, at the stores, even with their dogs, because there are many stores in Chelmsford that allow dogs as well. Lighting pollution. We are planning to work, or we are working with Mr. Kelly Beatty, who is presenting a bylaw amendment on town lighting to make sure that we live up to the future standards, not just the current standards, and that any light pollution is limited through the use of fixed hours, through the use of focused lighting, and other things. So the light pollution should be minimal. And I've already discussed the addition of lighting, or the potential addition of lighting, with the neighbors who would be most affected directly across the street. And they said as long as it's out by bedtime, and when I mentioned 9 o'clock being the latest time that we would expect it to be open, they said there was no problem with that. As for this being my initiative and not anyone else, well, my entire board is on board with this initiative, and I have 190 signatures from park goers saying that they are also interested in getting lights for the park, so thus extending the hours, especially in the wintertime. Okay, finally, the benefits. Defining the hours of operation removes any uncertainty over what dusk is, what dawn is. We have actually bumped into people trying to argue that dusk is a certain time or a certain median of the sun being below the horizon, basically just arguing what dusk is. If we had lights with fixed hours, we could say the park's closed at 9 o'clock or at 8 o'clock. And if anyone's there after that, well, then there's no question whether it's dusk or almost dusk or anything else. Provides benefit to the community, I've already said, about exercise and socialized dogs. It will allow the park to operate safely during these hours, so people who do come down, despite the technical closure of the park, they come down because they feel that they must get their dog exercised, won't be doing it on a dark field because they'll have the available hours to come down and do it in safety. Our initial presentation here is for solar lighting. We worked with 4 solar vendors on the initial presentation. 2 of them withdrew or stopped responding because we weren't moving fast enough for them. We do have 2 active participants in our request for proposals. And since engaging those original 4, I have found an additional 6 vendors who we could go forward with. So, that being said, we have quotes ranging from $35,000 to $55,000 for approximately 9 to 10 posts, all focused inward on the park. And the maps that follow show the initial layout that was proposed from our first vendor, which included, I believe it was 18 light posts, which was indeed excessive. The additional vendors who we've been working with have reduced it, as I said, to 9, potentially 10, and the maps show the lumen breakdown. I've discussed this also, the lights that we've been quoted on with Christine Clancy from the DPW, and she was concerned originally because I know the town had problems with some of the initial solar lights that they implemented around the town with the reliability, especially in our winters. In the last 2 or 3 years, the solar lighting have improved their technology. And the specs that she received, she's more comfortable with those, including the 10-year to 25-year warranty on the parts, than she was originally. So she's not necessarily on board with this, but she's not opposed to this at this point. So that's essentially my presentation. If you can't give me a answer tonight, that's fine, as we already discussed. My goal tonight was to introduce this because of the initial denial from DPAC. That's why I came before you all. But also, in order to move forward with in good faith with the 2 vendors who we've been spending time with or additional vendors, I need some good faith acknowledgement from the town that if we get proposals that are good, they won't just be denied because no lights are desired, that we can have lights as long as certain criteria are met, that lighting at the park is not just a straight out denial. And that was my goal with the presentation tonight.
Well, I think what we said is that we would table at least a vote on this. I mean, if anybody has any questions, but I guess I'm not ready to make that determination yet in consideration of DPAC having their meeting and then, coming back after their complete meeting. So I guess what I'd say as far as, I don't think you're going to get that assurance from us tonight
And again, as I said at the start, that's acceptable and not unexpected. So I just wanted to bring forward the reason for this meeting and the reason that I had the presentation ready for tonight.
Okay, now if you could hold on, if anybody has any questions. Virginia, any questions for Will?
I have one question for Will, and the rest are more for Paul or the board. So my one question for Will is the solar lighting, those have timers on them to turn off at a certain time?
It's at this point, it's actually better than timers. They are time set. So in other words, we set them to run when it's dark from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. And if it's not between 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. and it's not dark, they will not be on. So, or whatever whatever the determined time is. If 7 to 8 p.m., same difference. So they are at fixed times, not even 3 hours past dusk. So in the summertime, the lights probably won't even go on at all because 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. is all light.
Okay.
Do you want my other questions or comments, Pat, or you want me to hold?
Yeah, let's wait and see if anybody has any other questions for Will. Anyone have any questions for Will? George? Aaron? Okay.
And Paul, if you want to pull up the next slide, it's actually a better representation because that's one that we rejected.
My only concern would be that how dark that road is at that area. I mean, if the lights are gonna be in the park, that's one thing, but that's a bad road. And then when it gets dark and this time of the year, from now till the spring, it's a very bad road, and it's a lot of turns, and still got a lot of children and kids, students, I should say, not children. But a lot of traffic, and it's a lot of turns and a lot of blind areas, so.
So to address that, Mr. Dixon, there's a street light right on that one turn that leads up to the Mahoney's. And then we have parking lot lights already in the dog park parking lot, and the DPW lot, or the former DPW lot, which is now used for maintenance of some of the other vehicles, is fairly well lit. So that section is actually pretty well lit right now.
Thank you.
Okay, so Vivian, did you want to make some comments now, or? Sure. Okay, well, why don't you come to the microphone then? Yeah.
Hi, Vivian Merrill, Chelmsford Dog Park Advisory Committee. I did go through this presentation by myself because we haven't had time to meet. I noticed a number of inconsistencies over here. I'd like to kind of go through some of the major ones with you. Basically, a lot of the stuff I can agree with. We know we have visitors from all over the place. We don't know where they come from. Our opinion was never to make people from out of town stay out of Chelmsford. That was never our intent. It never has been our intent. Another point made when we talked about the history of the Dog Association, bullet 3 on that particular page is very misleading because the town does support the dog park. It supports the dog park in a number of ways. And Mr. Wagner has tended to minimize this over the years, especially when he's doing a lot of fundraising. It's like the DPW does do a lot of supply drop-offs for him whenever he has a work session. They plow the lot, they work on the fountains and help us, with some of the water issues over there. This winter, they're going to be rebuilding the fountains. Right now, the DPW is working on a proposal to help us improve the walkways over there. We've got a big, DPW just submitted a big grant application through the Cooling Corridors program to try to plant more trees over there. So they are very vested in this particular site. The town manager's office and the police department and the animal control office, they are instrumental in handling a lot of the complaints over there. The town clerk's office and the accounting department help us with our rental functions. So granted, the DPAC's work is largely administrative, but we get a lot of help from a lot of places all over town. As far as the request for the solar lighting, the original proposal that we were given was way too intense. It was 20 lights on 16-foot poles, and that was just too much. And we did reject that outright. And then we didn't hear again from Mr. Wagner until July of this year, And last week, we found out that this proposal was coming before you tonight. Had we not shown up at their meeting, I wouldn't have known about it until your agenda was published. And that to me is distressing. He never even came back to us to offer any kind of an alternate, to say it was even an option. He just jumped the gun and went right to you. That's his decision. He has the right to do that, but it's going to create a problem. As far as lighting at other dog parks, I know Arthur has put together a list of a number of the dog parks listed in Will's presentation, as well as some other ones. The majority of these parks do run from dawn to dusk. That's the way it goes. Nobody questions it, and it is what it is. We visited several of the other parks ourselves. A lot of the lighting in these parks is ornamental, or it's like meant to augment the parking lots or the nearby athletic fields and things like that. And to say this is an up-and-coming thing, maybe it is, I don't know. Even DPAC is not saying it's out of the realm of possibilities, but what has been presented to us so far is just like way over the top. Let's see. As far as staying after hours, I personally have a number of concerns with this because, all right, you've got these lights that are scheduled to go off at a certain time. A lot of people lose track of time. If you're out in the far end of the field looking for that dog poop and all of a sudden the lights go out, you're going to be temporarily blinded. And even with a flashlight on your cell phone and things like that, it's going to be very difficult for you to navigate across the ground if there's new holes or ice on the ground or things like that. I'm still not convinced this is an absolute necessity. People have been walking their dogs on leashes for decades. There's no reason you can't do that in the winter, too. You know, he says this is mostly for winter lighting. The presentation itself, I'm not buying it. He wants this year-round.
Okay, now this is not going to be a debate, and, you know, you asked for us to table it so your committee could meet. So we're
Yeah.
going to let your committee debate and, I mean, meet and deliberate and come back and tell us, you know, and we can put it on our agenda again for our next meeting and have Will and yourself come back and see if you can come to some agreement. That would be ideal.
That would be ideal, and I'd love to be given that opportunity.
Okay.
That didn't happen today.
Okay, well, so I think maybe we'll leave it right there
Okay.
for now.
Mhm.
And we'll look to see you at our next meeting on September 9th.
Okay, we're not meeting again until September 30th.
Could you have a special meeting?
Yeah. I mean, do you want to schedule another meeting before then?
I have a heavy business. I work.
Excuse me, could you take this off, you know, outside or?
Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
All right,
we don't need,
we'll have
we don't
figure
need to
it
hear
out.
your schedule. We
Yeah.
don't need to help you guys make your schedule for when your next meeting will be. But we will put it on our next meeting, which will be September 9th. So that gives you 3 weeks to have a meeting if you can.
Okay.
And if not, then, you know, you're welcome to come back and
Fair enough.
give us your thoughts. Okay.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I want it to be said, and I'm a little disappointed it wasn't said this evening by anyone. 6 weeks ago, I met with Vivian, Eric, and Will in my office and received this proposal. And I said exactly what you said. Get together and get this thing resolved, because I don't think the Board of Select Board wants to be placed in a position of, you know, being a juror on this kind of case. That hopefully you can come together with some resolution as to what can be worked out, and therefore together we can get an outcome. Because this is different than what has existed out there. And I explained to them that I think the concerns would be about what is the issue on the neighbors, that you should check with the neighbors, and also that, you know, what is going on in other communities as example and information to the board. And I guess it's a little disappointing to me that 6 weeks later, when I know that the Dog Association has attended a meeting at the Dog Advisory Committee since that time, that this wasn't resolved then, and once again, we're sort of left with what we're at tonight.
Okay, well-
And I would hope that this can get resolved soon, and hopefully everybody can come together on a common plan that would benefit the community.
Okay, I think the two groups need to get together.
Could I just make one statement?
One
please?
statement,
Sure.
seriously, 1
Eric
minute.
Merrill, we did meet Paul.
Exactly.
Okay,
And
we don't need to fight over
No,
who
oh,
met
no,
when
I'm
about
saying,
what.
He's saying that he was disappointed, but we did meet and continued it to the 29th. We had made no decision. This has come up since, but we did meet and we tabled it to our next meeting. So
Okay,
it wasn't anything
Fine.
else.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Virginia, you had some questions for Paul?
I have a question and just some considerations. Paul, you may have started to answer this already, but from your perspective, why do we have a DPAC and why do we have a CDA and what are their roles and how do they work together with the town? You appoint the DPAC, right?
Yes, I appoint the Dog Park Advisory Committee. It's sort of like what you see with the Conservation Commission and costs, unfortunately. I do not appoint the Dog Association. Since its inception, the Dog Association.
That was a self-organized group?
Yes, the Dog Park Advisory Committee, as the name suggests, is an advisory committee to the town manager who's responsible for the properties under the control of the select board for their operation. Since its inception, there's been a memorandum of agreement between the Dog Association and the Dog Park Advisory Committee in terms of the maintenance of the park. Obviously, they're all animal lovers, they're all dog lovers, and I think unfortunately, I think what I've seen in the last couple of months is there's been a schism, and has not been resolved. I hope that it can be resolved. But the point of the advisory committee, and I think they will readily admit because they've stated it to me, is they're sort of an advisory committee, an oversight role, and it's really the Dog Association that's really on site more frequently doing the maintenance and operations of the park. Very similar, as I said earlier, between what you see with the Chelmsford Open Space Stewards and the Conservation Commission on the open space lands.
Thank you, Paul. So I guess, Pat, I'll just offer some thoughts that I had before I heard the presentation. And I agree that the two organizations should work together and figure that out and then come back to us. I agree with Paul. I don't think we want to be in the position of being the adjudicator. It seems like this is something that the two organizations who both have subject matter expertise and input, we should be able to reach some kind of a joint proposal. That's what I'd like to see. My other thoughts were that if the select board has to vote on this, one of the things, at least in the future, that I would like to see is when we do have a consolidated proposal that we're voting on, I think that we should take the initiative as a board to invite the abutters, to ask for input from DPW, to ask for input from the police and the fire in case there's any additional safety or emergency access concerns or anything like that with the opening extended hours. I'm glad that, we're looking at lighting standards and light pollution. And then, Paul, I didn't know if the town would get involved in the procurement process at all, or if that would rest solely with the group that's funding it. But I do think that even when a proposal comes back to us, I would like to hear directly from those major town departments and from the abutters. I appreciate the initial due diligence that's been done. I just think that we should be informed directly before we vote.
Okay, well, we're not voting tonight, so.
I understand.
Right,
that's
okay,
where I am for the
understand.
future.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any comments before we wrap this up for tonight? Okay, all right. We'll see you in 3 weeks, unless you resolve it before then, which would be ideal.
Well, we still have to come before you.
Regardless.
Even with an agreement, because it involves
Okay.
taking town property.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Next up is Christine Clancy to give us a monthly ARPA update.
Good evening. I'm here to give the monthly ARPA update. So we are looking at 9.9 million of the just under 10.6 million dollars of funds have been allocated. Of that, we also do track the amount of, so that's 95% of all of the funds have been appropriated to projects. And of those, we do track the amount of invoice spent for project completion. So 69% of all those appropriated funds have been invoiced and spent. We do also track monthly the estimated remaining balance because we are coming upon a critical point where we have to allocate any remaining funds by this December. So looking to see how we would want to handle or allocate those funds. I can go over, and then I do, so as we get close to that date, I did put together a preliminary list of potential projects that we could allocate for that remaining funds. But before jumping into that, I could just go through this spreadsheet and just go over some of the items. Right there, yes. So this spreadsheet updated monthly shows, so anything in blue is projects complete. So we're really looking at the green projects. Those are projects that are all procured, but we're just looking at the completion. So looking at going down, I'm not going to go over all these projects, but one to just the number 3, the modular RTU replacement at the high school in McCarthy and Parker. So the RTUs are all in the buildings, but we do still have some final work to do in September for the McCarthy and Parker. So we have updated that balance. As remember, this had a large change order as it related to electrical upgrades. So for the McCarthy Parker, so that has an updated total project forecast. But we are getting close to that completion. With September right around the corner, so that's been updated. And then just going on down to numbers, we do have some red projects highlighted here, which are really the projects that just haven't been procured yet. We are happy to report that we recently brought on a facilities project manager, and so this is one of his first tasks to jump on. He's actively working on this now, so hopefully have an update soon on procurement of these projects, 14, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Number 15 is the Senior Center HVAC system project. That is also looking at starting later, really more of a September, most of the progress, and then completion for the most of it before we want to be back in that space for town meeting in October. I am carrying a $100,000 contingency there just because, as we start a project, there could potentially be changes. So we are, right now there's no large known changes, but that's something that we're closely tracking. So when you see the 1.0, just over $1 million, that includes some contingency that we'll watch that, the next month or so. And then moving on down to some of these other projects that are still shown in green, number 21, 22, 24, 20, these are projects that when we originally started with the ARPA allocation, they were allocated to different, for one being Public Health Associate, the Frontline Initiative with the Police Department. So that's something before the next September update, we'll look at that just to refine that and see if how much more spending we see, because Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, after December, we need to know if those funds are allocated. Because if we don't allocate that after December, then we would be, we wouldn't be able to reallocate that money. And then just jumping down to number 32, the Kensington Road Pump Station project. This is actually out to bid right now. It is estimated at $900,000, but those funds are appropriated separately under sewer, so we really don't see any project overruns there. And just continuing along, as we go onto the next page, we have a lot of projects showing, so the culvert structural assessments that pairs with a project further on down. So a lot of that project we're just updating. We should have an updated cost for updated progress on that this September. And then jumping down to the watersheds that's underway, I don't see really, and I mean, that will come with recommendations and future cost recommendations, but that would be outside of the ARPA funds. And same with the drainage improvement projects, 50, 51, 52. Those have been procured. They're pretty much substantially complete. We're not seeing any large change orders, so I feel confident in those numbers as we are nearing towards the end of construction. And then number 53 is, it's listed as partially procured. We have procured the design. It's currently being designed right now. We have a placeholder for $400,000 for that project. We are asking for an update by September, just to confirm that number. And this would be bid in the fall, procured before December. Then number 54, 55 are the drainage projects that are in good shape. Number 57 is a pilot smoke testing sewer system. That RFP has been issued, so that we'll be receiving RFPs by the end of this month. So we'll have a cost to put to that for the September update. We've procured the gap analysis in coordination with the health department and the groundwater and drinking water protection, the different policies we have in town. That's been procured. It did come in a little higher just because the number of meetings estimated and some of the additional scope that we had asked for. So it came in that we originally had $35,000. The signed proposal had $5,360. And then number 59. We're requesting a quote right now, so that's something we should be procuring in the next month. The number 60, the oil water sewer separator, that is been procured, and construction is anticipated this September. And then I know the fire department is working on the purchasing of the PFAS-free PPE. So in all, I think the projects, it's just some of these red projects that remain, and I think the culvert project, really the ones that we have the largest completion to do within the next month, 2 months. Also for tonight, I do know in talking with Darlene is that we've met monthly and revised the project totals. But I think from a reconciliation of the budgets, she was wanting to reconcile the accounts. So example was if we're tracking that there's a change order for $10,000 for a project, that's updated in the project cost. But I think this board would have to vote to appropriate those additional funds. And I think that could just be done under one reconciliation vote, not going over each one of the projects. So that's something that I do have on for tonight as well. And I guess if we want to go over now to some of the projects.
Well, why don't we see if
Sure.
anybody has any questions about
Sure.
the update
Sure.
tonight? Any questions from anyone? Okay, and now the reconciliation, do you want to do that now, since you said you...
Sure, yeah, if that might make sense to do that now. And so the vote would be to reconcile overall, so that if you take the total project forecast, that would be the reconciliation. Basically, it amends the budgeted amount for each one of those line items, going to a total of 9.901730. Because right now, what the budgeting accounts or what's been authorized is really the $9.1 million.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that, the need for that, or have any concerns about voting on it this evening? Okay.
So we would be voting to amend the budget amount for the line items presented to what outcome?
Yeah, to the total project
Fine.
forecast, yeah.
The 9.901730.
Oh, so it's the forecast that we're amending.
You're basically aligning the budgets with the forecast, yes.
It's a reconciliation.
Yes, reconciliation.
You ready?
I'm not sure. Okay, so that's the motion. The motion is to approve a reconciliation.
Yeah.
I think you could almost go to page.
Yeah, you could do that. You have it.
Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, I will make a motion to approve the reconciliation of each of the 61 accounts presented so that the budgeted amount can reflect the projected forecast for accounting purposes in the town's munis database as presented.
Second.
All right, very good. We have a motion and a second, and roll call vote. Virginia?
Aye.
George? Pat?
Aye.
And
Aye.
And I'm aye. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
So
So
now-
there's no questions, I guess, on what we've been working on. So the plan moving forward, we are we're close to that deadline of this December 2024. We do have until December 2026 to spend all the funds, but it's really important that we allocate all those funds. So if we are carrying $100,000 of contingency, we don't use it after December, we lose it. So what I've put together is a project list of projects that are also relatively easy to procure. There's a lot of, so example of reconstructing a bridge, well, that has to be designed, then you have to procure it. That's a longer lead time. So I was looking at ease of procurement for selecting some of these needs. And all of these are, we have many needs across town. These are all much needed projects. I put this list together just in the past week. I've even thought of a couple other ideas. Assessments are easy. Studies, one project on here I have is this, the police station HVAC is getting older, so looking at a study or preliminary design to make recommendations for what's our plan for the police station HVAC. And so I just misplaced the list here. But here it amounts to $689,000. I can just quickly go over each one if we're ready. The plan is to come back in September with a updated list, but just to go through quickly some of these. The first one is the Hugo Lane and State Street drainage improvements. We have done some work in this area and there's a section of corrugated metal pipe that has completely failed, but it is still a lineable pipe. It is an area between two neighborhoods, so if we're going in and doing dig and replace, we'd be removing dozens of trees, mature trees. So we did bring in a company. We've spent money through stormwater to clean it, CCTV it, and we do have a quote from Rapid Flow. They're on a state contract. It's just under $50,000 where we could line it. So that's something that we have it, ready to go. We're now just looking to identify a source of funding. Number 2 on here is Rain Garden at Checkerberry Lake and Overlook Drive. As part of the MS4 requirements, we're required to do a minimum control measure, or example is like a rain garden in year 6, which this is the year we're approaching. So we actually nearly completed this project. We haven't paid for it yet. It's being paid out of our roadway account, but just thinking about it's partial roadway, partial stormwater, but just thinking this is potentially an ARPA project you could reallocate it to ARPA, and that money would be used to fund more roadway projects that we've already had anticipated spending the $90,000. Number 3 is a GPS unit for engineering. We do a lot of in-house layout and surveying, wetland flaggings, edge of pavement, structures, updating our stormwater and sewer infrastructure. That unit is almost having to be reserved because if the sewer needs it, then the people that need to do some layout have to reserve a separate time. Thinking with the smoke testing pilot project coming out, we might want to use it more on a daily basis. The unit costs about $35,000, but it's really a very, very valuable equipment because to hire a surveyor to do that, you probably spend that on 1 or 2 projects. So that's a much needed piece of equipment that if it isn't ARPA, we'll find a way to obtain it in the next year or 2, but that's definitely needed. Senior center vehicles, there's 2 passenger vehicles. One is a 2013 Ford C-Max and one's a Ford Escape. They do have some repairs that potentially might not allow for an inspection it might not pass the next year's inspection. So looking at potentially replacing those with electric vehicles. Those could be purchased right off a state contract, or I know with DPW, we recently went with Volkswagen, so you just have to receive 3 quotes. So that would be relatively easy to procure. Police station HVAC assessment, I mentioned that one. Just as we look at a lot of our buildings, so we're going forward with the library right now, assessing it. The police station's right behind that. That's 2004, so that needs to be assessed as well. So just looking at how to build a roadmap or a plan and an estimated cost on how we look at upcoming repairs or replacements. McCarthy School switchgear assessment and repairs. This is a larger line item, $175,000, but it's very important. So the switchgear is really what steps down the electricity as it comes in from the street. McCarthy being the oldest school building, that switchgear is original to the building. To replace the switchgear, we've been told could be millions of dollars. And something that's not easy construction, just replace it. It'd be a substantial construction. There, you can refurbish it, and basically you're going through the unit, cleaning it, and assessing it. But it's almost like a tune-up on a car. It's a tune-up on a switchgear. So that's been recommended. Really, we're looking at it for all of our schools, but McCarthy being the oldest, that's something that we want to move forward with. We have had some outages there in the past couple of years, especially the past year. So this is becoming a critical infrastructure need, particularly for the oldest school that we have. Adams Dome repair assessment. This is the dome part of the library. There has been leaks in the past. We haven't had any recent active leaks, but we do know that there's more extensive repairs needed. So we just want to understand, assess it, and understand the overall needs for that structure, and maybe on a longer term basis. CCA exterior improvements. This started as just maybe a painting project, but really, if you're looking at the trim, there's a lot of trim. There's some rot. There's replacement. This is a historic building, so looking at updating some of this, or replacing some of the trim, and also in that the paint has peeled to a point where it needs to be scraped and painted. Town office bathroom renovation design, that's been talked about and on our capital plan for many years. That will be a substantial cost, but I was just thinking move forward with the designing of it as part of ARPA. That will at least then we'll have plans to put forward into a capital plan. So that's been proposed. And then lastly, the food pantry trailer. We are looking at a 50,000 state earmark, which is a great amount of money to be able to replace the food pantry trailer. But we still have to demo or get rid of the existing trailer, and I do think that the cost might be a little bit more because it has to be the air or HVAC controlled. So looking at supplementing that $50,000 with potentially $40,000. So that's preliminary list, and we will go over this again and refine it. I also just put procurement process because there are a couple of things to highlight. The switchgear, the CCA exterior improvements in the town offices. Like, when's our last hit the go button? And that's September, because then if we wait till after September, it's going to be very difficult to try to procure that because we have to develop the documents, get it out to bid, and then make a recommendation to award the contract.
Okay, I just have a couple of questions. It looks like 3 of these are on the warrant, the town meeting warrant. If we do this, will we take them off the warrant?
Yes, but the challenge is you're going to sign the warrant at your next meeting in 3 weeks as well, and we're coming in.
Right.
And part of the reason that they're in both places is we still don't have the closeout for the fiscal year that we just ended. So I don't know what the town's free cash balance would be. So that's why we're sort of keeping our avenues of funding open. If it were to remain on the warrant, we would basically take no action at town meeting. Yeah.
Right. So, and I have another question too, on number 2, on work that's already been completed. Is that eligible under?
I'm not aware of any ARPA requirements that actually are required to be procured or allocated before procurement. I can double check that, but when I was looking at it, I did not see that. I think there's more flexibility.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions about these projects?
What constitutes procurement? We need to be fully procured by the end of this year, correct?
Yes, so I think signed contracts.
Contractual
Contractual
contracts,
contract,
purchase
yes.
orders, okay.
Yeah, it's got to be they basically has to be obligated. Yeah.
Okay.
Allocated or
Obligated.
procured?
Obligated. I mean, you have to have an
Procurement,
agreement
it
in
has to be
place.
signed, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. A signed
Even if
agreement.
you're referencing a state contract, you'd still have to have some things referencing it and just signed under that agreement.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions?
Can I ask a question? It's kind of a random question, but why is the food pantry in the trailer behind Town Hall to begin with? Has there ever been consideration as to relocating it to an existing town building or something like that? Just curious.
Years ago, the food pantry was in a very small, 10 by 10 room over at the old Center for the Arts in the back. And it was literally about a 10 by 10 room. When we embarked on the project to redo the old town hall and make it into a Center for the Arts, we needed to move them out of there. So having no place to put them at the time, we procured a trailer and thought that this would be the best spot for them. I think historically it's worked out location-wise as a great location, but we had no place else to put them, so we procured a trailer and put them out back here, and it's worked out pretty well, except for it was a used trailer at the beginning, and now we're looking at buying a new trailer. And I'm hoping this time we can, paint like the green monster sign on the side for the baseball fields. That's what we wanted to do originally. That's just a little side note.
But that's why it's there.
I'm
That's
just
why.
curious.
We had to vacate the town office with the renovation there, and Sandy Donovan at the time was running the food pantry, was like initially adamantly against it. It was going to be terrible, terrible, terrible. It was going to
She
lose
was
people.
so happy after
and then
it
so
moved.
afterwards, when it happened, she's like, "This is so great," because now if you see what happens is it has the cars and the
Yeah, the
circulation
drive-through.
that goes through. We did look at the possibility of actually locating it next door at McFarland.
Well, this seems like the time if
when
you were
David
gonna relocate it,
When
this
David
would
Hedison
be-
was doing his renovations, but he wasn't able to accommodate it there, and we really just don't have another location in town. And like you said, it worked well here.
Okay.
Because the idea is you wanted to be in an area that was near transit routes, that was somewhat in the center of town, and there's also people come from out of town who come right off the highway as well. So that's
Plenty
sort
of
of
parking,
why it's
plenty of
settled here.
lighting.
But
Exactly.
do we have the room back? I mean, is
Oh,
this
yeah.
new trailer going to be much bigger
So
for
they,
the
I
new
mean,
trailer?
they obviously want more space. I think we're constrained in the footprint, but we were looking at maybe another foot higher, would actually provide more volume. And also inside the trailer, I think their shelving is like 12 or 15 inch. So we're looking at just some 24 inch or 18 inch wide.
So the layout gives them more capacity.
So we're just looking at a
yeah.
different layout. I mean, it might be incrementally, but when you look at the space, there's not too much more space. We
You'd
can't
have to go
expand
back
it.
more towards center field from where we are from here, like away from our
Yeah,
building.
I mean,
And
it's
you
tight
drain-
already, so
Yeah.
that's why I was
There's a
wondering how
little
much
bit more
bigger
room-
this
there's
trailer
a little more room back there.
We're looking at a little bigger volume, but probably within a very similar footprint.
So do the people who run it, are they
They're-
not looking to relocate, or are they
Yeah,
happy?
no,
They
no,
think
they're
that it's
happy, and
functional
they've
good?
been seeking, I guess, a new facility just because of the age of this facility. So they're welcoming this initiative to replace.
But they're
it.
happy to stay there
Oh, yeah.
in the
Oh, yeah.
location that they're, okay. Just curious.
Okay.
Thank you.
Christine, you want to tell us about DPW grants?
Sure. So I thought it'd be good just to give an update on some various grants that the DPW has either received or applied for. So first, let's go over some of the grants that we've received. There's a $7,000 grant that we just recently received through DCR's Urban and Community Forestry Program, which will allow us to procure trees and plant them within the town's right-of-way or town properties. It could also be used for assessing existing trees if we wanted to look at the health of trees on the common. I guess the scope is to remain to how we want to allocate it, and that's something that we'll work on with the tree committee. We do have a lot of needs within our right-of-way or on town properties. But now that we have the funds do have to be spent by May 31st, so we're just going to quickly look to see what we recommend. Thinking 10 to 15 trees. That includes the mulching, the fencing around it. Looking at they're called tree diapers. You put them around the tree so they almost self-watering. So that's something that either if it's not this fall, we would be planting them this spring. So we'll have locations. My guess is we have a lot of dying trees on town property, so potentially replacing some of those smaller trees. So happy to report that. And then the next grant is really something that just kind of fell into our lap, which just doesn't really happen. But I mean, our sustainability manager coordinated this. But as we build out the electric vehicle, people switching from diesel, gas to electric vehicle, there has to be that infrastructure to support that. And so in the past, we've there's different private developments that have the charging stations. The town has added it. It's becoming costly to add those charging stations. It could be a couple $100,000 just for a port. So there's an initiative between National Grid and East Coast Renewable Energy. There's some, they're invested in this because there's incentives for them to, help build out that network. So they looked at different areas in the community, and we're putting together opportunities for where we could potentially put electric vehicle charging stations. We were approached about 6 months ago. We put together a list of 8 locations, and we just found out we've been awarded 6 locations. 5 locations in 6 ports. So, and these are the fast charging stations. Right now, we only have one location at the Chelmsford Forum, so that can charge your car in about an hour, whereas the other locations, it takes, several hours or almost up to a day to charge. So we will have 6 ports at each location. Chelmsford Public Library, town offices, senior center, Roberts Field, and Vinyl Square. So that's this will significantly increase our inventory, not only of just the locations we have, almost doubling our locations, but significantly increase the fast charging stations. The value of this project is $2.24 million, and we do not have to pay any of it. Which is it's a great opportunity for us. The only thing we'll be responsible for is the cost and maintenance after the 5-year warranty. But excited to see this. So it could be as early this fall. It could be this spring. But basically right now we've worked on the layouts. They come in with the infrastructure. And then it should be up, once they start, it should be up in a couple months. So we don't have a time frame yet, but right now it's spring or fall.
So the stations that are already there right now, like here at the library and Vinyl Square, will they stay?
Yeah, so those will stay. We'll just expand the network. These are Autel ports, and right now we do have charge points, so people will have to have a separate app. But as of right now, we're looking to keep the existing stations. When we look at some of the spaces, I guess we still have to look at the library because there's one there. Do we relocate it? Maybe the Adams. So there might be an opportunity to relocate some infrastructure. But right now, it's just getting these in new spaces, and then we'll have to see how we modify the network if we want to.
And we do generate some revenue from these, correct?
Yes, so I did look at that from the 20 locations we have. I ran the numbers for FY 24, and we made $55,000 in revenue. Of that, we paid about probably, it's hard to get the exact amount, but I think it was like $13,000 in electrical costs. So the delta is close to $40,000.
Okay.
So there is the revenue coming in on that.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Any questions on that? All right. So then we move to some new grants that we're applying for, and hopefully we hear this fall. So the first, and it was mentioned earlier tonight, is a cooling corridors grant. This was where we had to look for a site, potentially like a climate hotspot areas where in town where there's in need of trees. And really what aligned was the dog park in North Chelmsford, that really looking at the Massachusetts database. It is an environmental justice community and climate hotspot. It really became an attractive application. So we worked, the tree committee, planning board, dog park association. We worked on a proposal. It will be trees interior to the park. So I think it will really improve the space of the park. Right now it's hard to grow grass there just because of the harsh, it's in direct sunlight. So if we add these 25 trees, it will really, I think, the walking path will be clearly defined, and it will just really, I think, really transform the site. So that is estimated at $31,750. That is because it also required a 2-year watering commitment, so we do have a watering contract proposed in that project. So hopefully we hear back this fall on that. The next grant that we are applying for this week is in coordination with the police department, is the Mass DOT bottleneck reduction grant. We did win this a couple of years ago last year for the Turnpike Road. This grant comes up every year through Mass DOT. So looking at the Hazen Street, Harvey Road, Boston Road intersection, that has been in NIMCOG study identified as one of the top 200 cluster intersections, where really, if you look at the site distances in that area, it is hard when you're traveling down Hazen Street. Hazen Street doesn't have a stop sign. Harvey does. Who has the right of way? So we want to look at that intersection as part of this bottleneck reduction grant, and through that, we'll see hopefully if we receive it, we'll have more information. That does take a bit of a process because right now we're going through the Turnpike one, and so that's something that will be for next year. So my guess is that if we found out, we'd be awarded it, but we wouldn't really start it till next year or the year after. And that could be up to $500,000, so that could be a significant grant. And then lastly, through the State Department of Labor and Safety, there was opportunity for training, and we do try to provide as much training as possible to our staff at DPW. So we did apply for various courses: bloodborne pathogen training, safety leadership, chainsaw, hand tool safety, and asbestos awareness, and that's for $8,000. So hopefully we hear from that on hear about that application this fall as well.
Okay. Anybody have any questions about those grants? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is, I received an email earlier last week, from a resident asking for if we could do a proclamation for National Service Dog Month, which is September. As you know, our policy is that the proclamation has to be brought before us for one meeting to see if there's any concerns from board members or any edits or anything else having to do with the proclamation. And we can ask the proponent to make changes if needed. So that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing with this, bringing it forward to see if anybody has any comments or concerns about it. So, do you have any thoughts about National Service Dog Month? And I did ask Mr. Wagner, since I knew he was going to be here, if representing the Dog Association, if he would have any comments.
So, yes, as a representative of the Board of the Dog Association, the Dog Association members, we discussed this, and we do support this proclamation.
Okay, thank you. So, any comments?
Who would be receiving it?
I will ask the person who asked that it be done if she would want to come and accept it at our next meeting.
Thank you.
She actually is, I believe she works for a company that trains the dogs. So that perhaps would be, are you that person?
No.
No, okay. I saw you nodding. Okay. Okay, so that's what I would anticipate. And if not them, we'll have other dog people here, so I'm sure somebody will accept it. So are there any edits, comments? Everybody's okay with it as written?
All right.
Okay, it's very good. Thank you. All right, so on to our next item agenda. And I see Mr. Brousseau sitting in the back very patiently. So he had asked me to create a letter to endorse the age-friendly action report for what you were going to be, we're applying to get recertified. Is that what we're doing
It's a
now?
progress report.
Progress report.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Town Manager, good evening. I'm Fred Brousseau. I co-chair of the Age-Friendly Chelmsford Implementation Committee. And on behalf of the committee, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you before you vote to endorse a letter that we want to include with our 5-year progress report, which signifies a major milestone in our efforts, our continuing efforts to make Chelmsford even more age-friendly. If I may, I'd like to quickly share with you how we got to this point. In July 2019, Chelmsford was granted a 5-year membership in the AARP network of age-friendly states and communities. In March of 2021, we submitted our age-friendly Chelmsford action plan that was approved by the town and subsequently by AARP. In May of 2021, the Age-Friendly Implementation Committee was appointed, and our efforts to address the actions in the action plan began in earnest. In September 2024, next month, as required by AARP, we plan to submit our 5-year progress report, which you will hopefully endorse this evening to include a letter. Upon approval by AARP, Chelmsford's membership in the network of age-friendly states and communities will be renewed. In October 2024, we plan to have the progress report available at Fall Town Meeting as a handout. On behalf of the Implementation Committee, I'd like to take this opportunity to gratefully recognize the hard work, time and support from town officials and committees, town departments and their staff, residents, numerous community organizations, and several business partners and sponsors for their enthusiastic participation in our efforts to make Chelmsford even more age-friendly. It's truly been a town-wide team effort, and our work's not done. We look forward to further enhancing our age-friendly services into the future. So, any questions?
Any questions for Fred?
Thank you.
Yes. A lot of good work.
It's a team effort
Yes.
across town.
Okay, so tonight you're looking for us to endorse the
To
letter?
endorse the letter, which we will include
Mhm, okay.
in our progress report.
Okay. Any comments about the letter?
It was well done.
That looks good.
So, can we have a motion to endorse it?
I will make a motion to endorse the AARP letter of support as presented.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Virginia?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
And I'm
Thank
an
you very
aye.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have a review of the Select Board and Town Manager goals. We talked about these at our last meeting. I made updates that we had mentioned. If there's anything that I missed, let me know, and we can update it again. Otherwise, we can vote to make these be our goals and have them posted on our webpage. Anyone have any? Sure.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Sure.
Paul, on the sewer stormwater drainage section, it just says reports as needed, but I think we've tried to give a little more attention to that than just as, like, is there a frequency that we want to commit to reporting out on these?
I mean,
Like a minimum?
I mean, probably, it depends on the time of the
Is it
year.
a-
I mean, I'd say quarterly generally, but, you know, it may depend upon time of the year. For example, inflow reductions, we may not have a lot in the winter months.
But then we would have more later?
But we may have more later, you know.
So
but-
they would
but I would think-
be, at minimum, they would be quarterly, and then some of them may be more frequent depending on the time of the year?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, what about like the MWRA? I mean, that's almost a.
Yeah, it could be what it is, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what it is, unless there's steps that
Okay.
multi-step effort. But basically, my plan would be to come in, as I give quarterly reports to the board, and then we would,
Correct.
you know, include updates on each one of these as our quarterly updates.
Okay,
But again, more frequently,
okay.
if issues arise. Yeah.
right, okay.
And I had a similar question with the roads and the infrastructure. I get uncomfortable when it just says as needed, because like you get what you measure, right? So do we want to be more intentional about when we actually take a conscious look at where we are with roads and sidewalks?
Yeah, very similar. I mean, again, not only the quarterly updates, but as you recall, and we've done in the past, what we'll do in the future is we'll have the Public Works Director come in at the end of the construction season, which at this point would be October, November timeframe, provide a look back at what we're looking at, and then as we did this past year, as we get into the February, talk about the look ahead of what we have for the season, and then what happens during the season. We saw it in my newsletter. We're out putting out there, these roads are going to be paved in the next month. This is what's happening. So yeah, I think again you'll get quarterly updates, but you may get more frequently depending on time of year.
And similar with the underground utilities, I know that's kind of
Yeah.
a complex thing that has a bunch of moving parts. So
Yep,
depending, we'll get a status quarterly, but then depending where you are with the project or the study,
Exactly.
we may get a deeper.
Yes, we're already working with council on that, and yes.
Pat, my only other comment was on the second page where it says board and committee initiatives. And at the last bullet, it says consider senior center inclusiveness. If somebody just picked this up, I would hate for them to think that like we don't think the senior center is already inclusive. So
Okay.
it might be a nip, but maybe just say consider senior center expanded inclusiveness or something like that.
Okay, sure.
I think it looks good. Thank you for doing this.
Okay. All right, so I can make those edits. Anybody else have any?
That looks good.
Then if you want to make a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the Select Board and Town Manager FY25 goals as presented.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Virginia?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
Aaron? Aye. And I'm aye, 5-0. Okay. Next up is Town Manager reports.
Yeah, real brief. The first one is I've given you the revised draft warrant for the October 21st Fall Annual Town Meeting. As I mentioned earlier, 3 weeks from now, when you have your next regularly scheduled meeting, you'll be signing the warrant for the Fall Annual Town Meeting, which the date is September 9th for the signing, and then the town meeting is October 21st. As was noted earlier, that we're sort of covering the financial aspects because we don't know what the funding level will be from our balance sheet. What I anticipate is we may not have it certified by September 9th, but we'll know what's been submitted. And as we've seen in the past, the end result comes within a few $1,000s, of minor changes. But we don't have that estimate at this time from the accounting office. But Darlene told me she expects to have that done by the end of the month. So anyway, we have the warrant. This is the second draft. What's really changed from the first draft is I did include the citizen petition that we received at the last meeting from Mary Donovan on the pet cemetery. I out of consideration for her and courtesy to her, I put it as Article 2 after committee and town reports because I just trying to just recognize her efforts and also I just trying to be fair. I don't want to keep her there till 10:30 at night for her article. And again, as you know, we can take things out of order, but I think that's the way it goes. The other thing that's major since the last draft is what's listed as Article 18 on this draft, the South Row School partial roof replacement schematic design. You may recall several months ago, the superintendent, with your approval, submitted for the MSBA accelerated repair program. Since your last meeting, we had an outreach from the MSBA and a virtual meeting with the superintendent, myself, DPW Director Christine Clancy, and our facilities managers on the school and town side. They've not given us a formal notice that we've been invited in the accelerated repair, but they're doing a site visit tomorrow, and we don't think that they're and they're very familiar with that school because we did the kitchen work there a few years ago, so we don't think that they're doing all this to then say, oh, thanks, we'll get back to you next year. So we anticipate to be brought in. This is only for schematic design. We asked, well, can we accelerate the accelerated repair? Because what they envision is this project would not occur until the summer of 2026. So even though it's the accelerated repair program, it still takes time. So what the expectation is we would receive a notice September, early October, by that date that we've been invited in. Why this is here is you have 90 days from the date of the notice for the schematic design to secure funding for the schematic design. Well, we don't have a town meeting between October and April regularly scheduled. So the idea is that we anticipate that by the time of town meeting, we will be formally invited. We have an estimate. We're working with them for what the schematic design would be for that roof project. We think it's around $100,000 because we have to hire as the owner's project manager first and then the architectural firm to do the work. And again, MSBA has their list of vendors and so forth. So that's why that's on there. But again, the only obligation at this point would be $100,000, and then we would get 50+% of that reimbursed. but we're probably not looking at funding that until the fall, a year from now, fall of 2025, for construction in the summer of 2026. Because once we then get the funding, you then got to do the full design, procurement, and then line that up. And in order to do summer work, you really have to have that done by January, February. We inquired to see could we do it for the summer of 2025, and no, they have their schedules. They also have their project assignments, as much as we've seen on the Parker School project, and you're not going to deviate their schedules. And part of it is because their vendors and lists they have their time allocated assessments as well. So that's a major one. So that's new since the last time you had the list. So again, if you have no further comments, I anticipate coming back with the final version of the warrant. What will change from this is probably more text, as well as town council legal review on things like the drainage easements that are being requested by the water district to install the water main across the high school, McCarthy Middle School, and Parker Middle School properties. Those plans are being reviewed by the school administration, school committee, and DPW, but I need to have all that language, because that's a considerable easement, as you can see the distance, and that's for their treatment requirements for the water main. So that'll have to be reviewed by council. And it's similar to the drainage easement on High Street, at 40 High Street, as well as the street acceptance. So again, what's really going to happen between now and the next meeting is the formal legal review and flushing out the details. I don't anticipate any other major changes over the next 3 weeks. So if you have any concerns or questions, and I said where we won't know the ARPA funding, we'll probably leave the articles on, and then we can just take no action, because I don't want to be presumptuous of what the board may or may not choose to fund. But some of the items are timely, like the trailer. There's an earmark for that. It has to be a lot from the state budget. It has to be expended by next June 30th. So I can't wait till April. I don't want to wait till April as well. So that's where we're at with these projects, and the exterior, the painting of the town hall, and so forth. So again, we'll finalize this for your next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Just a quick question on South Row. Can that wait till 26 to get? I mean, what state are we in?
Yeah, we think it'll get there, but it does qualify, because one of their criteria is your roof has to be 25 years old, that they won't even consider you in the program. We meet that threshold, but we think we can get to 2020. And one of the big challenges there is we got to take the solar panels off and then put them back on. That's a big project.
Like $300,000 just to
Yes.
remove the solar. Is
Right,
300.
but we're told that's will be inclusive of the state funding reimbursement, because if we didn't have solar panels, we'd be required to assess and plan for solar panel installation on the project.
Yep.
But that's a major one there. That's why we're estimating $100,000, because it's not only schematic design for re-roofing and the project manager, you also have to get the assessment on removing the solar and then putting the solar. They're ballasted up there, but it's still a consideration.
Is that part of the schematic design?
That'll be part of the schematic design, yep.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
The next item I have under my report is the Massachusetts FY 25 250 grant program, which was part of the goals that you've approved tonight, and we've discussed at earlier meetings. The information has been out. We attended the online webinar on the 250th grant. A couple of key things that were part of that presentation and the application information. One is the monies have to be expended by June 30th of 2025. So even though it's the 250th, which doesn't occur till 2026.
But the 250th of the start of the revolution.
The start of the revolution occurs.
Right. So it's really Patriots' Day.
Right, and it actually began back to the Boston Tea Party a couple of years ago. So they couldn't commit to the fact that whether there'll be funding next fiscal year, but what they're looking for is funding for efforts of this fiscal year. Like, for example, we know our Minutemen will march, in April and so forth. You cannot expend it on capital. And again, it had to be expended and committed and occurring. It could last past June 30th, but it had to be done. So you couldn't say, couldn't we plan this and then we'll use it for the parade on July 4th of 2020? No, that didn't qualify. So that's why there's no request from the parade committee. So again, I circulated this to department heads. I included the information that we have. And again, what we're really doing is we're trying to do a coordinated effort between the library, the senior center, and the Center for the Arts to focus events in May when the weather will be appropriate near the common area, as well as a production at the CCA regarding the history of the American Revolution. What will happen is that the other interesting thing is the grant deadline is the end of this month. So it's actually the 26th at 3 p.m. So we're going to work on this in the next week. But I wanted to bring the board because this was one of your goals, and I know that we've had discussions briefly at our previous meetings. But this is fast-tracked, and we're trying to propose something to participate in this commemoration. And again, I'll keep you updated as with the final application and once we get a decision, because they want to make decisions by September. And then the last thing I have under my report this evening is a double poll report from National Grid. I think it's good news, in terms of relative good news, probably until the storm last week. I was a little more encouraged because I think we're getting double polls out of that severe storm where Chelmsford was one of the hardest hit areas in the state from the storm last week, and that's why the news crews from Boston were in town. But the good news from the report as of the beginning of August is the number of double polls went from 65 to 61. But the good news is the Chelmsford only has one, so we basically did a lot of work in July, as I indicated we would, to move it along. And why you can see that's progress is when the ball lands in the court of open tickets of Comcast, they're the last ones to go. So you can see from July and August, the 17 of those 61 were in the hands of Comcast, which basically meant they were near the end, and then Verizon being the penultimate one. So you can see we're progressing with getting some of these down. Again, I think we're going to see this list bounce up with new ones as a result of the storm last week. I also, as I mentioned at the previous meeting, I did go out and do some inspections on some of the older ones from National Grid, and National Grid said they would examine those, and I also reached out to Verizon and said, look, can you look at these that we highlighted as aged ones? And they came back, said they would look at their entire list. Again, that was prior to last week, because I know they got a little bit derailed, but I want to put the board that this is an ongoing commitment, and we want to, at this point now, we want to really get stuff done before we lose them for the winter conditions, because we're nearing September, so we want to keep pushing them to get out there September, October, November, before they really can't come out if you get a severe winter. So we'll keep you updated with the progress on these.
So these that say dispute on them.
Yeah.
What do you do with those?
We don't as a town adjudicate that. That's really National Grid and Verizon. Verizon owns the polls. National Grid's the initiator, and they're working with to resolve those disputes. Typically, they come with third-party vendors in terms of what's going on here. Why isn't this work taking place? So we're hoping to have those resolved soon as well.
Okay. Virginia, do you have a question?
Yeah, Paul, I'm looking at the second page, the summary tables at the bottom, and specifically the one that says July 1st to August 5th.
Yep.
So you said, Comcast is the last to go. So they've gone up from the previous month from 10 to 17. Is that indicative of them not moving?
It's also indicative that Verizon, for example, went from 15 to 11. So once it leaves Verizon, it goes to Comcast. So if,
I see. So
if
then
people
it
ahead
bumps
of you
up.
or in the queue are moving, then your numbers should go up. And even as you're moving them out, you're still getting others coming into you. So the key, National Grid is first. So that's why
but they actually went up. So that's an indicator that we had, for a storm issue or something, there were new poles.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, great.
All right. Next up is appointments. First, we have election worker appointments. Anybody have any questions about this lengthy list? If not, we can take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the annual election worker appointments as presented.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Virginia?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
And I'm aye, 5-0. Okay, and then you have,
Yeah, I have 3 appointments this evening. One is for the Council on Aging, Dale Phillips, for an unexpired 3-year term ending June 30th, 2025. The second is for the Cultural Council, Patrick Snow, for an unexpired 3-year term ending June 30th, 2026. And then the final one is Parade Committee, Sean Hanaway, for 1-year term expiring actually, it should be 7/31/25, because those go to the end of July. Thank you.
okay, any questions about those appointments? I'll have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the town manager, board, commission, and committee appointments as presented.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Virginia?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
And I'm aye, 5-0. Thank you. Okay. Okay, now we have some minutes. We have a set of regular meeting minutes from the meeting of August 5th. Any edits, corrections on that? If not, we'll take a motion.
But this is August 5th? This was 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah. Why, do you have something?
Was this the one that was I on Zoom for this? Or was that before?
You
Should that
haven't
be
been-
noted
you
in here?
haven't been on Zoom for
That
a
was the
while.
22nd.
That was the one before, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
just making sure. That's it. That's all I had.
That's, okay. So we can take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the select board regular meeting minutes of August 5th, 2024 as presented.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Virginia?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
And I'm aye. And just for some executive session releasability of minutes, segment 3 from our June 24th, 2023 2024 executive session have been released. Segments 1 and 2 from June 24, 2024 are not to be released at this time. Okay, we're to liaison reports and referrals. Virginia, we'll start with you since you've been going first with all the votes.
I don't have anything tonight, thank you.
Okay, George?
No.
Pat?
Just quickly, I had an update from the building committee that we're getting close with the North Chelmsford Fire Station, and it looks like the contractor will be mobilizing right about October 1st and be done shortly after November 1st to reside that building in North Chelmsford. So that is coming up soon.
Okay, thank you. Aaron, anything? Okay, the only thing I have, last week I attended a ribbon cutting on Summer Street at Heritage Kitchen Designs. If you have any needs, if you're renovating your kitchen or building a new one, they have all kinds of things to help you with there, so Heritage Kitchen Designs on Summer Street. And that's all I have, so now we have an adjournment to executive session.
I will make a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining regarding the Police Commanding Officers Association.
Not to return.
Not to return.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Virginia?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, 5-0. We are adjourned to executive session. Thank you.